And we are going live.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for this evening, St. Ben's at Home. My name is Anne Smagel and I'm the Director of Alumnae Relations. Please note that there will be time for questions towards the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions for tonight's guests, please click the Ask a Question button at the bottom of your screen. Please note that you may need to exit out of full screen view in order to see the Ask a Question button. This session will be recorded and posted on our LUM Learning Consortium's past event recordings page in 2 to 3 business days. Now, please welcome our moderator for today's session, Kathy Hansen, Vice President of Institutional Advancement.
Thank you, Anne, and welcome to all of you for joining us for this April edition of St. Ben's at Home. As those of you who've been with us before know, we've been framing our conversations this year around the theme of what it means to be a college for women. So last fall, we were really talking about how that's lived out on our college campus. And this spring, we've been bringing in voices from campus and community to talk about larger issues of the day and really hopefully provide some insights that might be helpful for you and your life. Remember that you can watch all of the previous episodes of St. Ben's at Home by going to our Alumnae Relations website. Now, as part of our St. Ben's at Home practice, I like to give a little assignment to everybody as we start the show. So tonight, it's a pretty easy one. Since our focus is on food, culture, and community, I thought it'd be interesting to hear from you what your favorite food was when you were a student at St. Ben's. So use the Ask a Question button. Let us know what your favorite food was, and please include your name and your class year as well. And later on in the program, we'll be calling out some of your food choices. Now tonight, it's my privilege to welcome 3 very special guests to our conversation this evening. First, we've got Kim Pagansky, who is CSB's Director of Culinary Services. Also joining us is Associate Professor Emily Hying, who's with the CSB SJU Nutrition Department. And last but certainly not least is Phil Paulson, who is the chef and the culinary manager for St. Ben's. So thank you to all of you for joining us tonight and for sharing your time with us. It really has been quite a year as we look back over this past year. And for a lot of us, food actually became even more important than it usually is. I mean, some of us discovered our inner sourdough bread baker, right? Or our banana bread baker or whatever. And maybe we discovered kind of the joys of eating at home more than we usually did. So we thought that it might be appropriate to come together and really talk about food and community at St. Ben's and also, in the larger community as well. So with that, let's get started with some questions. But before we really dive in, I'd love for each of you to kind of give a little more of an introduction of yourselves so that our listeners know a little bit more about you than just your job title. So Emily, would you just take a minute to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kathy. Hi again, everyone. As Kathy mentioned, I'm Emily Hying, and this is my 7th year working at St. Ben's, and I am an associate professor of nutrition. And a little bit about my background: I grew up in Iowa. I enjoy the Midwest, and I went to a small liberal arts college myself for college, Wartburg College here in Iowa, where I played tennis and I majored in biochemistry. Always liked the nutrition part though, like that was my favorite part of the classes. I got my PhD from the University of Wisconsin then in Madison. Knew that I wanted to start out and be working in a small liberal arts environment, and was just really pleased when this position opened up because it combined my love of nutrition with kind of my desire to work at a smaller college. So I'm really happy to be here in the nutrition department. I teach a variety of courses. I teach nutritional biochemistry and micronutrient metabolism, but then I also teach kind of like global malnutrition, things about food systems, and most years when I'm not on sabbatical, I'm actually on sabbatical right now, but most years I'm also running our undergraduate research program in the department.
Thanks, Emily, and extra special thanks for you doing this while you're on sabbatical. You get bonus points for that, for sure. Kim, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Kathy. Again, my name is Kim Pagansky, and I grew up right outside of Minneapolis in Maple Grove, and I came to St. Cloud to attend St. Cloud State University and have been in the hospitality industry for 30 years. I've been on our college campus here at the College of St. Benedict's for 15 years and in my role as director for approximately 9 years. I have 2 children, of which my oldest is my daughter, and she is an alum from the College of St. Benedict. So it's been really fun to see her connection to St. Ben's and all her friends that she continues to build relationships with. What I like most about my job, of course, is trying the food. But even more than that is the wonderful relationships and the learning opportunities I have from our students that we work with and that come and dine in many of our facilities. So thanks for having me and look forward to chatting with you.
Thank you, Kim. Phil, would you introduce yourselves to our audience?
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. My name is Phil Paulson. I'm the culinary chef manager here on campus. I grew up in the Twin Cities area and came to St. Cloud in 1995, so I've been here for quite a while. My history, I've been in food service for nearly 30 years now. I've been in restaurants, hotels for a bit of that time, but since about 2002, I've been in campus dining in various different roles. First, I was a chef at St. Cloud State University, the exec chef there. Spent a good 10 years there in various roles. I was at one point operations director for resident dining, operations director for retail dining. I oversaw some of the sports and entertainment there with concessions there, as well as some of catering. I had then had a short stint at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse as an operations director, and then transitioned for about a year and a quarter to the U of M as a food service manager there at Centennial Hall. I was able to come to St. Ben's in 2015, so I'm approaching 6 years here. It's been a fantastic experience. Probably my favorite part of the job is we're fortunate. We're an independent operation, so we have an opportunity to collaborate and be creative as a team. We've got a fantastic group of students. They're a lot of fun to work with, have fantastic enthusiasm and great feedback, and it's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks to all 3 of you for those introductions. I appreciate it. We're going to range kind of widely in our questions tonight. So we're going to start off with several questions that really focus on kind of food on campus. So what that whole dining experience is like for our students. Then we're going to dig into more of the what's happening in the classroom, more about our nutrition major that Emily can tell us more about, and then kind of broadening into our conversation about how food plays into kind of the culture of the campus and in building community. So let's start out by learning a little bit more about food on campus. And I guess I'm going to start out with a really basic question for Kim, and that's like, what exactly is it? How does it work on campus? Phil mentioned that we're independent. We don't outsource our food service like a lot of, maybe even most other colleges do. So really unusual in that regard. So how does food service work at St. Ben's?
Absolutely. So let me start by just sharing that we have one residential dining center, and then we also have 2 retail outlets. We also have a student-run coffee shop, and then we have the events and catering portion of our business. But as Kathy led to and asked the question, we are a self-op, better known as self-operated dining program. And I think we're really fortunate to be a self-op dining program. There's many benefits for us and for the students, the institution, to operate in that way. Some benefits that I feel is really the ability to design our menu offerings specific to our students' likes and requests. We can also set our own initiatives that support the students and campus strategic goals. And one of those that comes to mind is a conscious decision to transition into scratch cooking within our operation as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And we feel in doing this, we can provide a cleaner, more nutritional, cleaner profile for our recipes for our students, eliminating many of those preservatives that sometimes we find in our food and in our industry. It also gives us.
When did we make that move to scratch cooking?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably look to Phil to share that. I'm going to, and we've done it gradually.
Okay.
And I'm going to say we really started doing that about 5 years ago. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. When I started, we had some struggles with staffing, and had kind of moved towards some products that made it feasible for us to successfully serve students. As we began to stabilize our workforce and our team, we knew from the start that we had a very able and capable team that really kind of took a lot of pride in what they did. So as Kim said, we just gradually started introducing things, trying to identify those things that are really very, very doable from the start, kind of get people confident about making things from scratch, and then just looking for ways to introduce more and more ideas. Again, collaboration was a big piece of it too, trying to look to persons' interests and what they wanted to do, as well as some of our student feedback, I think was really kind of a good motivator for persons to want to contribute to that scratch cooking. So I think it was just one of those things where because we started gradually, we didn't ask persons to do more than we felt they were capable of doing. I think, again, that confidence piece really developed quickly. And from that 5-year period of time, within about 2-3 years, we gained a lot of steam and momentum, and we're really able to eliminate nearly all of our pre-processed products. But the only thing we bring in now are things that we just don't have either the equipment or the means to do. So really have changed a tremendous number.
Phil, that's really interesting, and actually leads to my next question, because when you talk about scratch cooking, most of us think about when we do scratch cooking, we're cooking for 1 or 2 or maybe 5 or 6, 7 people at the most. You have to scale it up for thousands, right? So how do you do that? How do you scale up scratch cooking to serve that many students and faculty and staff and guests who eat there?
Sure. We're fortunate. We do a couple different things. Probably the biggest factor in it is we use a program that's called Computrition that provides a lot of our nutritional information, but it also allows us to do tracking of how many people we've served in the past, and really kind of how how successful the menus were, and what the preferences were persons on the individual menus. So we call it kind of it's an acceptability factor of sorts, where if we have one day where we might have a really popular item like a mac and cheese bar that gets hit disproportionately hard, we know then the next time that, because it's recorded over several menus, we can kind of begin to estimate a little bit better as to how many of those thousands are going to eat it. Because that's probably the trickiest part, is that obviously when you have a lot of different selections, everyone's not taking a little bit of everything. They tend to focus on where their interests and where their wants are. So, that's a big part of it. A lot of it's just we will hold menu meetings every week where we get feedback from for them as our station chef 3s. They kind of head up our different stations, so we get a lot of positive feedback from them as to what they saw in terms of consumption and interest and feedback. So it's really I'm kind of becoming redundant already with this word, but it's a lot of collaboration and a lot of working together. And this program is also a really significant kind of convenient piece for it as well.
You mentioned the stations, and I think for people who may not have been to Gorecki lately and had a chance to eat eat there, they might not know what we mean by stations and how that all looks, because it really is. It's so impressive when you walk into it for the first time. What do we mean by stations, and how does it serve students, I guess?
Sure. So we're fortunate. We've got a beautiful facility. We have 5 different locations that offer students an opportunity to have a different dining experience. We have our Mongolian grill, which offers persons the ability to kind of select different vegetables as well as proteins. We have about 6 to 7 different sauces as well as different rices, so persons can assemble, kind of make their own stir fry. We have a pizza pasta station where we have a wood stone oven that it's kind of a Hearth style oven, so we're able to do pizzas there that we can do hundreds of different types of pizzas, as well as a pasta option. It's kind of a safe go-to for kids. We offer our in-house made our pasta sauces there, our Alfredo and our red sauce. We also make our crusts there, as well as our pizza sauce and our things like our Italian sausage. So we take a lot of pride in a lot of scratch cooking there. We transition from there to home style, which is more of kind of a comfort food kind of a location, things you might have at home or you associate with just something that's more of when I say complete meal, it can be both somewhat indulgent and somewhat guilt foods, but it can also be foods that we pride ourselves on doing balanced cuisine, where it represents a meal that we feel is very helpful options to persons. But again, it's kind of your protein, starch, and vegetable option. We have our salad bar area where we have a nice big salad bar that we're able to do. And during non-COVID times, we do a toss to order there as well, where it's a salad kind of assembled your way. We've kind of transitioned that into a sandwich station so persons can get pre-made sandwich that's kind of an easy grab and go for them. From there, we transitioned over to the American Grill, which is anything from a hamburger to a chicken breast sandwich to French fries of several different kinds to we might do cheese curds one day or mozzarella sticks. We've done kind of the short order type foods that really kind of satisfy kids' cravings, I think, oftentimes.
Tater tots are a big hit, I think, right?
Tater tots are big. Yep, they're all the fried potatoes are big. They love the fried potatoes. And then we don't necessarily recognize it necessarily as a station per se, but we also have our bakery that we're very, very proud of that produce the vast majority of our products, both in Gorecki catering and in retail. So put out a tremendous amount of bread products there, saving us a tremendous amount of money. A very talented staff doing everything from sourdoughs to ciabattas to cranberry wild rice breads to our hamburger buns, our pizza doughs, our hot dog and brat buns, just our sandwich bread. So really a huge contribution and really something we're really proud of.
That's amazing that we're doing all of that from scratch. And I hope the students give you many compliments because the food is delicious. And actually, speaking of students, not only during your time here at St. Ben's, but even before, you've been in this field for a long time. How have students' tastes change? I mean, what are they liking now compared to 5-10 years ago or 20-30 years ago? How has that evolved?
20-30 years ago, their knowledge is just so much broader. Their awareness of foods, the exposure they've had to different types of foods. Obviously, when you go online, I mean, if you're interested in food, there's just an endless amount of information out there. Also, I think that they're more conscious of diet, what they're eating and how it impacts them, whether it's from a health perspective or an ethical perspective. I think just the awareness and the engagement in dining that's purposeful in I guess, for lack of a better phrase. I also think that food programs have increasingly gotten better. So I think the expectations are getting higher. They're seeing what's being offered, and I think that there's an expectation that's there. I think that housing and dining has become an increasingly significant part of the decision-making process for a lot of students. I think in particular for retention as well. So just in an entirely different perspective, I look when I was in college, and I think you just kind of felt as though that was what you were given, and that's really all you could do. Where now, I think students realize they have a voice that's very impactful. So they use it. They communicate with us. We're very fortunate that we get a lot of feedback from students. A great portion of it is very good, positive, but we also get those things that they feel as though they would like to see change or improve. And it's great for us because it gives us that opportunity to either explain what we're doing, change what we're doing, or get a better understanding as to what they're looking for.
Well, one of the things that I know has changed is sort of the variety of special diets that people have, either because of food sensitivities or allergies or kind of religious requirements around food,
Sure.
Things like that. And I know we're, increasingly sensitive to that, but it also must be a challenge too, to provide that kind of a variety of foods to all of our students. So how do you manage that? And how does that piece work, I guess? And maybe
Sure.
that's a Kim or maybe it's a Phil. I'm not sure whose question that is.
Maybe I'll start with our service of our registered dietitian, and then I'll throw it back to Phil on how they really take care in creating menus for those that have a dietary preference or need. So we are really fortunate that the college has committed to having a full-time registered dietitian on campus, and specifically she works most of her time within culinary services. And indeed, Kathy, as you mentioned, that need has just grown just at a fast rate every year. And what our registered dietitian is able to do is to meet with students, any students that want to meet, but to learn about their specific needs and to walk with them through our spaces, through our dining center, to have them learn how they can eat and meet the needs of the dietary needs. And like I said, someone doesn't have to have a specific dietary need, but perhaps they just want to learn how to eat maybe more healthy or in a certain way. And so Rachel, our registered dietitian, spends a lot of time meeting with those students. And of course, we then do prepare meals to meet their needs. And Phil, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think, again, one of the big benefits of self-operation is that we have that flexibility where we have the ability to purchase as we see fit. A lot of times with a contract service, they're tied to purchasing programs that can kind of limit some options. as Kim mentioned, that the fact that we have a registered dietitians is a huge part of that. And I think we also try to, include many communication pieces, whether it's forms at the cashier, or we have an online form where persons can request things. How we go about doing it is we'll identify a particular person in the kitchen who is not in contact with what would be considered a contaminant, with some sort of an allergen. A big number of our requests come from gluten-free diets. So we'll try to identify persons who haven't necessarily been in contact with flour. We'll just have a process where those persons will take care to, obviously wash hands. We have special equipment that's used for those persons in particular. They're kind of, you may have seen them in the past. They have a purple color scheme to them to kind of identify them as to be used for special diets in particular. And then it's just a matter of trying to make sure that we're using product that hasn't been near or potentially contaminated by anything else. So taking fresh products and preparing that for those persons. We might modify some recipes slightly. One that comes to mind is like our Alfredo sauce. We typically use like a flour thickening agent on the line, but when we have a special diet, we will modify that where we'll make it, because we're making it to order, there's not necessarily a need for concerns with thickening. So it's made to order for a person and can remove whatever ingredients would be of concern. So we have a pretty good menu of different options available for them on these forums.
It's really interesting because you don't tend to think of a dining hall or dining services as being sort of educational, but I mean, what you're describing is educational for our students, right? Who get to consult with a nutritionist and, really kind of learn about how to, improve their health by,
Sure.
eating appropriately, and we make that possible. That's really cool. So one of the other things I was kind of wanted to reflect back on, and I know that many of the people watching and listening tonight may have memories of this, of taking their meals in what I would call the garden level of the main building. And do any of you have any well, you probably don't personally have memories of that, but perhaps you do. How's it different back then and compared to now? I mean, how would you compare the experience then with what our students are experiencing today?
Sure, I can share that the Gorecki Dining Center was really built to bring community to the center of the space. And so the design in the seating area really allows for an individual person to come in and feel comfortable, or a group of people to come in and feel comfortable. There is a lot of natural light. There is low seating, booths, high top tables. And the way that our stations are set up, which Phil shared, allows for people to flow through the space, look at what they may be interested in trying something, and going back if they want some more. And so I think that is, I just have a small, brief look of what the main building was, the CAF at that time. And that is some of the main differences that I see. And that's what I hear from our alums that come back and go, oh my gosh, this space is so comfortable and so bright. And it just makes us happy when we walk in.
Well, that's great. We've talked a little bit about the pandemic. I know you had to make some big adjustments to how we serve students. So what were some of the changes that you made during this last year when typical dining wasn't necessarily in the cards?
Right. So we were all learning, Kathy, at the same time. And we really partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health, who played a significant role in giving us guidance for campus dining. And a few of the changes, we made so many changes, but a few of the changes that we made is good signage, so our guests would know what to expect when they came into the dining centers. But everyone was asked to hand sanitize. We introduced a one-way flow of traffic, so everyone was moving in the same direction in our service area. We moved from self-service to serving all of our food. So that took a lot of additional staff, and keeping our staff safe. We wanted to make sure that they stayed 6 feet apart from each other also. And then we also introduced a to-go option. And that was something new and specifically just to assist during COVID. But for those individuals that didn't feel comfortable being in an environment with a lot of people around, or simply because we had to reduce capacity, perhaps there wasn't enough space for them to sit.
Okay.
And so they were able to take that. And then one of the things that we did was we provided a health screening process for all of our staff and for our vendors before they entered the outlet, to make sure that we were trying to reduce that, minimize that risk of COVID within our establishment.
You know, one of the other things that I think is notable about our dining services is really how we've been attentive to issues of like environmental sustainability, and you know, just being sensitive to waste and things like that. And I'd love to just hear quickly what are some of the ways that we kind of try to be more environmentally sustainable in our food service.
Sure. In 2007, when the Gorecki Dining Center was built, there was a great intent to allow our guests to come into the dining center without the need to have trays. And you might say, you know, Kim, how did that affect sustainability and environmental practices? And if you think about 2,800 trays a day times 7 days a week times 32 weeks in an academic year, that's 627,000 trays that we no longer need to use water on to wash and sanitize or chemicals. So that is one way how I believe we made a tremendous impact in our efforts. But our students are so smart in this area that they really help us continue to progress in this area. Two additional ways are we really try to reduce any consumable food that goes to waste. And so our students come in twice a year, and when people are done with their plates, they scrape all their food off that wasn't eaten, that could have been, and we weigh it. And it's a visual for our students to say, this was a half an elephant worth of weight that you chose to take and didn't eat. And that's a very big impact. Most recently, we've partnered with Furnix. We received a grant for a pilot program to use green Aussie containers. And what we're trying to do is reduce our plastic containers in our retail outlets. And so this is a new pilot program that we're trying to encourage our students to buy or purchase those salads or sandwiches that are in these Aussie containers, so we can clean and wash them and reuse them. So those are some ways.
And going trayless, I understand, also helps with food waste, right? Because when we have a tray, our tendency is to pile all kinds of things on it that we may or may not eat. So just by having to carry your plate, it's reducing waste that way as well. So
correct. And we really want to make sure people know that they can come back for more. So we never want people to think, you know, that they're not welcome to come back. So it works really well.
Let's shift now and talk a little bit more about what's happening in the classroom and about our nutrition program. So Emily, you're up, and I've got a few questions for you. As a faculty member at leading in the nutrition program, tell us a little bit about what is in the nutrition program. What are students studying? What's
Yes.
unique about it?
I would love to talk about that. Yeah, so our nutrition program, kind of overarching, we have a major and a minor, and I may be a little biased, but I think like our nutrition major is like the epitome of the liberal arts, because it's like the integration of so many different topics. When we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about food, but we're talking about diet, we're talking about in connection to health, but we're also talking about food systems. Where does our food come from? Food service, like how can you distribute food to people? Food science, like what are the different properties? You know, we integrate biology, chemistry, sociology, all of these different topics. So our major and our minor, we offer a lot of different classes, and with our major, really they can they take a core set of classes, like an introductory nutrition course and a couple other courses, and then they can kind of like choose their own adventure, where we have customizable advising tracks. So if a student wants to do pre-health, they take a certain kind of set of courses, and then, they'll take biology, chemistry. If a student wants to do maybe more community health, they can kind of take a set of courses that we've kind of developed and put together to go in that route. And so, yeah, we have 7 faculty members, and we all have our own kind of little niche and area, and it's a really nice puzzle that kind of fits together to provide a wide variety. And we're housed with the chemistry department in the Ardolph Science Center. So yeah, there's really a lot to offer. I would say a lot of our nutrition curriculum can be applicable to dietetics, becoming a dietitian. A lot of our majors do choose that option. That is an accredited program. But outside of dietetics, there's a lot of options.
So how long have we had this major?
Yes. So I went back to our program review because it has been around a lot longer than I have. And I think a lot longer than even some of the other faculty members have too. So when I was looking this up, so dietetics was kind of a major by itself, what I understand, since 1921, which is really cool to me because the establishment of dietetics as a profession, area of study started in 1917. So, I mean, St. Ben's was right there, kind of on the forefront. And so I do think kind of how a dietetics undergraduate program is set up has really evolved over the years. Like for a while, it was kind of like a coordinated program where students would take classes and kind of have these more internship rotation-like experiences. And then kind of the field of dietetics shifted to be more of, now it's kind of called the didactic program, where they learn a lot of material from us, and then they can go and do the dietetic internship and gain the hands-on experience that they need. Okay. Now, for someone who's a nutrition major who doesn't want to do dietetics, when I was looking into this, this was more established. I was seeing some evidence in the 1970s, and I saw that it actually became its own department in the 1980s for that. And so that has kind of been around for a while. We had concentrations where you could do something called nutrition science, or you can kind of just do a general nutrition. And I believe it was maybe 4 years ago where we decided that it would be more beneficial for students if we offered these advising tracks where they weren't locked into concentrations and they kind of had more flexibility. And that really comes back to, again, this idea of nutrition and liberal arts. We want our students, even if someone's going into healthcare and they're going to be, in a clinical position, they are still going to need corset, they need something like a food and culture. They might benefit from a global malnutrition course or a course that focuses on food insecurity because they're going to need to pull that into. So that's a little crash course.
Yeah, I love that, linking it to the liberal arts, because of course that's what we're all about. And I have to believe that it makes those students actually more helps them advance in their careers, no matter what they do afterwards, to be broadly educated as well as deeply educated within nutrition. You mentioned students going on to become dietitians. What are some other jobs that students graduate and go into?
Yes. So again, a wide variety. We have alums doing so many different things in so many cool fields. So one area is they could work in community health. We have a lot of alums who work with the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, or they might be doing kind of community health programs, administering those types of programs, developing education materials for all sorts of ages. We have students who work in industry, maybe in kind of research and development in the food industry, kind of maybe closer to food science. But we also have some students who do more regulatory work, quality assurance at some of kind of the industries around Minnesota. I know General Mills, Hormel. I have seen some of my students go on to do that. We have a lot of pre-health students. I would love to see even more with pre-health too. In that, you could be a pre-med student and major in nutrition. You could, want to do physical therapy. You could major in nutrition as well. So like we have students who go on to do those health careers. And then I would even say with the students who want to do dietetics, it's a pretty big field. I think there's this kind of stigma that dietitians are just the weight loss people, and it's so much, the field is so much broader than that. And I really hope it keeps getting away from that. We have dietitians who work in grocery stores. We have dietitians who work in food service, working, at all different pieces of the puzzle, working in communities. That's just a few of the options.
It's a pretty wide-ranging field that's open. And I think, like you said, it's much more than what a lot of people think. And I imagine some go on to graduate school, right? And end up teaching and doing research. So that's, I was just curious about how many students do we have majoring or minoring in nutrition these days?
That's a great question. I recently saw an email about this, and now I'm racking my brain to remember what that said. I've been on sabbatical, so I have been out of the loop a little bit. I do believe we're anywhere maybe between 20 to 30 majors a year.
Right.
I would not bet the farm on that number, but I would say, I do think it's around 20 to 30 majors a year. And, it kind of just, it fluctuates. I think I see that in a lot of majors as well.
I want to ask you about some research that you've done. We hear a lot more, I think, these days about food insecurity, and even food insecurity. And many of our viewers tonight might not realize this, but we have students who experience food insecurity while they're at St. Ben's, and that's something we're much more aware of. And I know that's been a focus of some of your research, Emily. So tell us about some of the things that you've learned, discovered about students who are experiencing that on our campus these days.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's been kind of a big project of mine. And I've worked with Dr. Jonathan Nash in the history department. We've collaborated over the past couple of years. We decided to kind of take that on as research because I would just hear some stories from students, and you talk about it with colleagues, and I'd be like, I wonder, if this is happening to other students. And I also think there's kind of been a national awareness of food insecurity in this age population. So we've done some research over the past few years, and we've collected data kind of 3 different times, trying to figure out kind of what's going on. I have collected a lot of data, and it takes a long time to analyze. So not all of it is analyzed, but kind of some of the top level things that I think people need to be aware about is that in our surveys that we sent out, we had about 500 students respond to those surveys, which I was so pleased with, students of all years. And I would say the biggest thing is we found that 1 in 3 of our respondents, about 33%, reported experiencing food insecurity. And we used a validated survey by the USDA to kind of look at that figure. We've also asked questions kind of on our survey, trying to figure out what would make someone more at risk for experiencing food insecurity on our campus compared to someone else, because we just have the prevalence data. That doesn't really do us any good. We want to fix it and figure out how we prevent this. And
well, let me follow up with a question about that. So what are we doing in response? Because you've learned a lot of really important things. What are some of the steps that we're taking as an institution to address the issue?
Right. So I think the first big step was that Jonathan and I just wanted to also create awareness on our own campus. And because it was just a new topic for someone, and I think it really surprised a lot of people. And so what we did is we started meeting also with other departments on campus. Kim has been a phenomenal partner. She always listens and is receptive to the data, and she's been awesome at coming up with ideas. From my perspective, kind of the two places I've seen kind of some work being done is in culinary services, and also culinary services working with student development. And that's kind of coordinating some things over breaks when there might not be as many students around, dining services in a full strength, and kind of finding some ways to get meals to students. Also in student development, Marcia Malum has been a wonderful partner to work with. She created like a resource website that talks about food assistance and kind of some of the community resources. The St. Joseph Food Shelf, there's a program called Fair for All as well. And I'd say the last thing that I think is really important was in residence life. Residence life and student development work together to create a statement on when a student fills out a form to say they're going to stay on campus, they can check to say, like, I have concerns about accessing food. And if they check that, then a staff member will follow up with them to help them like create a plan to see, like, is it a meal plan question, how their meal plan, or, you know, do they not have access to something, and we'll work on how to get access for people.
That's really great. I'm glad that you did that research and that it's resulting in some productive change. I want to make sure we've got some time for questions from the audience, but there's a couple other questions I'd love to ask, and it might be Kim or Phil on this, but how do you see food being a part of building like community on campus? We've talked about some of the specifics about our food service, but how does it play in creating the kind of community culture that we want to have at St. Ben's?
So I'll share with you that we work really hard of providing around food experiences that our students will take with them and remember for years. And I'll give you two spectrums. At Christmas time, we put on a holiday dinner, and Phil and his staff make an amazing meal. And our students dress up and they come with their friends, and it's in a more formal atmosphere. We decorate to make it feel really special. They take pictures. We have people taking their photos with their friends, but it's that food and that hospitality that brings people together, that when our alums come back, they talk about that holiday dinner and how special that was. Mm-hmm. On the opposite end, we do late night pancake events around study day. And so what is that? It's a bunch of our campus partners that come and volunteer and serve pancakes and sausage and fruit. And some students come in their pajamas, and we try to have it lighthearted. And again, some of their favorite, maybe faculty members or Sister Sharon or some of the other sisters are there. Again, it's surrounding food and community and building experiences in a positive element. So I don't know if you have others to add, but those are just two things that I think are special.
Well, Phil, what I want to ask you is, what are I'm sure there's some home runs on your menu, right? So just name a couple of the items that we would, like, the students would revolt if somehow you drop them from the menu. So what are the big hits?
They kind of run the gamut. We've had some recent hits that I think have been really well. We've just recently introduced a grain bowl that's been going over fantastic. But, you know, on the flip side of that, we also have kids who line up 30 deep for a CSB bowl, which is kind of our rendition of Kentucky Fried Chicken's, popcorn, chicken, and mashed potatoes and gravy and corn. So yeah, it's a funny kind of a dual thing. We're seeing a lot of interest in things like we offer a fresh Atlantic salmon that we serve with our balanced cuisine that kids seem to absolutely love, which is, we talked a little bit earlier about kids' tastes having changed. I couldn't imagine being successful serving salmon, 20 years ago, but it's an absolute favorite. I think obviously things like grilled cheese and tomato soup are things that kids go to naturally and say, hey, it's just kind of a comfort food. They love a taco bar of various forms. We do a lot of different kind of taco inspired, where we'll do like a pulled pork that we call It's our carnitas that goes over very, very well, along with the burrito bars, the fajita bars. It seems like they love those kind of options. Other new items that we serve quesadillas off of mango, so we try to change that up periodically, and they will absolutely line up for that. It may seem like a strange option, but I think ice cream is huge on campus too. That if our machine is down for any reason, we're hearing
no doubt
definite complaints about that. So
well,
yeah, it's fun to see the gamut.
Yeah, I can tell you, I didn't have dinner yet, and I'm super hungry right now after hearing all of those. So, Anne, I want to turn it over to you because I'm guessing we have some questions and comments from the audience. So, what have we heard, Anne?
Sure. Yes, we do, Kathy. And I will have to add that my favorite food when I was a college student at St. Ben's was the chicken strips from the Loft, and of course, Benny bars. So, you know, you can't go wrong with either of those. So, our first question revolves around food insecurity, actually. Heidi was wondering, just to get a little more information about kind of how it works on campus. She's wondering, are students allowed to live in the dorms and not take a meal plan? Are students who live on the campus apartments allowed to not be on the meal plan? And then are those in the apartments more likely to suffer from food insecurity? So I know that's a lot of questions, so we can break it up, Emily, but yes.
Yeah, I actually think those first questions are better for Kim. I mean, I could answer them about the meal plans, but that's kind of her wheelhouse. So Kim, I'll let you go for that.
Right, and I think then Emily will have some results of what those meal plans mean to our students. So the first question, I believe, was those students that live in residential halls, and typically those are students in our first and second year cohort. Those do have a meal plan that's a continuous meal plan. And so that's what they have for the first 2 years. Once our students are in a third or fourth year cohort, typically their third or fourth year, they typically are living in an apartment or a townhome on campus. And it's at that time that those students have a choice if they want a meal plan or not. But I believe Emily's data that she collected does have some correlation with what type of meal plans people are on and the level of food insecurity. So Emily, I'll turn that back over to you.
Yeah, so I would say in general, meal plan is a significant risk factor compared to a lot of the risk factors that we looked at. So looking at gender, race, financial need, socioeconomic status, year, and oftentimes students choose their meal plan kind of based on their year. There are some kind of guidelines and restrictions for that. So we do see in the data that we have so far that meal plan is related to food insecurity. I don't want to confuse that with that, like the meal plan causes food insecurity. So that that's not it at all. We just see that there's a relationship between that. From the data that we have currently, it kind of trends that as students choose meal plans that have fewer meals, so kind of as they get older, we do see a trend to like more risk for food insecurity for that. I wouldn't say, again, not a cause and effect relationship. It's just a trend that we've seen. I will say I would like to we need to do another round of data collection because the first couple rounds we had a lot of first years respond, and I was so grateful for that. But we do need to have kind of some more equal distribution between the years and the meal plans too. But I would say, yeah, we're starting to see that. That was one of the trends that appeared.
So just so I'm clear about this, so Emily, it's the absence of a meal plan that is correlated with the food insecurity, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say the absence of a food plan. I would say students who have meal plans with fewer meals on them. Yep, that's where we're starting to see. Yeah,
there's less of the food insecurity than in the first and second years where they have a continuous meal plan. Okay, yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Thanks. And what else are we hearing from the audience?
So one question is, do we know if food insecurity on our campus is greater, equivalent, or less than the general population?
great question that I was so curious about this too. So in the research literature, there is very little about liberal arts colleges. So I would say in comparison, a lot of the studies are done at like state schools, urban schools, public schools, where it's similar. There's a wide range. I was just kind of to prepare for tonight reading a review paper, and like some studies report maybe 10 to 15% of students. Some studies report 60 to 75. A lot of them are right in that 30 to 50% range. So I would say our percentage of students that are food insecure, at least from the data we collected, is comparable to other colleges.
And other questions?
Yes, a very important one. How did the tradition of Brinner, so breakfast and dinner, start? Could either Phil or Kim answer that question for us?
I don't have an answer. So Phil, I'm going to look to you.
I think it is one of those things that I think it's a common thing that you see, that persons just really find comfort in breakfast meals, despite the time of day. If you, as a kid, I remember going to Perkins at 11 o'clock with friends, and we'd all get omelets or pancakes or waffles. I think there's just something about breakfast that really kind of just makes you feel comfortable. A lot of times we'll gear them around finals time, so it's kind of that comfort piece. Or I think it's just one of those things that. It's an easy smile, it's something where you feel comfortable. It's fun. Kids seem to come out in groups and really feel it's a fun time to socialize. Our participation is really good on those days. We see a lot of persons come out. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things that is just a feel good food.
And just for those in the audience that may not know what Brinner is breakfast for dinner.
And it's wonderful. And if we had any people share what their favorite foods are.
Not yet. So if you do have a favorite food and want to share it, it can be something recent, it can be something from the past. Feel free to throw that into the Ask a Question section. We do have a question though from Jane. She's wondering, what opportunities are there for students to learn about food outside of the classroom? And is there a teaching kitchen on campus?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, like, right now, if you're a student on our campus, probably your best bet, like your opportunity to learn about food, is really through the nutrition department. We do have a food safe space and a lab, but it's not very big. We need more on campus. So I would say, like, I see like some student clubs that will sometimes use our facility. So I would say, like, if I had to think of like a goal for our like department or our campus that's related to food or nutrition, I would love to see a teaching kitchen. We talk about, I see in emails, community always. And I think that comes back to this idea, like, how do we create community around food? And I would love to see a teaching kitchen to do that, because you could not only connect with the community here at St. Ben's, but the St. Joe community. There's so many cool things that you could do. So yeah, I would love to see that for student clubs. You could hold cooking classes, culinary classes. Like, one thing I thought was interesting from my data, and this was very preliminary, was that we asked about like, how many meals do you cook? And was kind of looking at that, and like some very kind of relationship, again, not cause and effect type trends, where that kind of, students with fewer meals in their meal plan did tend to cook more. But it made me wonder if like that was an opportunity to help students, if they're not sure how to cook, if they didn't grow up with that, maybe they didn't. And so that would be something that would be really cool for the teaching kitchen. So there are a lot of ideas. It makes me excited.
A few weeks ago, we had the sous chef. I know we had the sous chef on campus. The sous chef is a Native American chef from the Twin Cities, who was leading a session on campus. And I think that was well received too.
Yeah, I was so excited. My colleague was one of the ones who kind of set that up. And I'm really excited because actually next year I'm hoping to co-teach a course on kind of Native American nutrition and some of the health disparities, and kind of talking about revitalizing Native foods and things like that. So yeah, I really admire Sean Sherman's work, and yeah, he's done really well.
Yeah.
Great. So a question for Phil, how does St. Ben's compare to other schools?
Well, I think we've got a tremendous program. With the self-op, the school has invested a lot of money in what we offer the kids every day. We have a much more generous amount of money that we have to work with to offer some great menus. And I think that we've got an environment that's, I think we've done a really good job just as a community, really emphasizing our Benedictine values. And I think that's really trickled down to our staff. And I feel like there's a lot more personability on our campus here at St. Ben's. I don't want to necessarily take away from what other programs do, but there's a lot of limits that are come about kind of as a byproduct of corporate entities. It's they're very bottom line driven. They're very large in scope, so there's not necessarily you don't know all the key players by name or by face. We're in a situation where we know the persons who are asking things of us. We can speak with them and try to get further information. We have great access to our students, so we can adjust to their wants and needs with little or no red tape. So all that really allows us to really bend and flex to what the needs of the time are. With COVID, there was a lot of changes that happened that we were able to at first we kind of scaled back quite a bit, but we were able to reintroduce when we thought it was appropriate. It wasn't necessarily driven by a corporate initiative. When kids want to see particular different styles of cuisine or different items or special requests, we can do that with really little or no hesitation. So I think it's that flexibility that we have that really makes us a better program.
Great. And do we have any more questions? I know we're getting close to the end of our time together.
Yeah, we have time for one final question. This one's from Mary. Mary asks, how has our becoming a more diverse campus community changed food offerings, and what are students exploring to diversify the food that they're willing to try?
Phil, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I think, again, with that push towards getting feedback from our students, we're really seeing, what we have obviously a very diverse community. We have students from around the world. We've done festivals in the past that have allowed us to accumulate a number of different recipes with Festival of Cultures that are kind of fun, easy go-tos for us because they're tried and tested, that are able to kind of give a little bit of a reminder of home to a lot of students. But really, it's that opportunity to get that feedback and hear what persons are interested in. And I think students, just by nature, are curious. Some are a little apprehensive and reluctant to try, but I'd say a good number of our students, when they see something new, they'll ask questions. We're fortunate, we have a very engaging staff, so they spend a lot of time talking with students and trying to not only give them a hospitable experience, but just kind of an informed experience. So really, I see so many kids just having that natural inclination to try new things, especially if there's some sort of a cultural experience associated with it.
I also notice when we go into Gorecki, just as a matter of course, I don't think it's anything special, but just the varieties of like sauces and curries and vegan options and things like that are just there. Things that probably many of us wouldn't have experienced when we were students as well. So sure. Anyway, I think that's a wonderful way to end our conversation, to hear about our curious and exploratory students who are trying some new things, and thank you all for the part that you play in helping create that kind of culture on campus that really allows food to be such an important part of how we build community here at St. Ben's. So I want to thank all three of you for taking time to join us, especially those of you on sabbatical. I think that's going to be a special thank you to you.
No, I'm so happy to do it. I'm just so happy that you asked. So yeah, thanks for having us.
And thanks for everybody who's joining us tonight. Please stay on where you'll hear some follow-up information from Ann Sumangill and some information about our next St. Ben's at Home, which is the final one for this academic year. And we thank you for being a part of this and wish you a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Phil, Kim, and Emily for joining us. Audience, you can share additional questions or comments on tonight's episode through the evaluation form that will be emailed to you by the Alumni Relations team. As a special treat, Chef Phil has shared the St. Ben's recipe for chicken meatballs, a favorite item on campus and one that features techniques for reducing food waste. Look for that recipe in tomorrow's email as well, with a link to the evaluation. This year, the St. Ben's Student Senate and the CSB Alumni Board collaborated to produce the the Benny Cookbook. This collection of recipes submitted by alumni is designed to give students and alums a recipe toolkit for healthy eating once they leave the scratch cooking on campus. You can pick up a copy in the CSB bookstore, and your purchase will support student scholarships. Please join us for the May episode featuring the topic of women in technology. During this episode, we will talk about what it's like to be a woman in the STEM field, specifically technology, the new data analytics minor on campus, and how being a college for women can encourage more women to pursue tech and other STEM careers. Our panelists will be Professor Bob Hess, one of the co-coordinators for the data analytics minor, Sandy Geiser-Martin, class of '87 from Thomson Reuters, Kami Longstreet Zimmer, the class of '93 from Glimpse, and we're excited to have them all join us next month. We're able to offer this online event free of charge due to the generous support of alumni and friends. If you're interested in ensuring that programs like St. Ben's at Home continue, please go to givecsb.com to make a gift. You can find additional details about the St. Ben's at Home series on the landing page listed here. We will also share this link in the evaluation email you will receive tomorrow. Thank you all for attending and have a great evening.